Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us for this Q&A of Luchadoras. I would just like to reintroduce our guests, co-directors Paola Calvo and Patrick Jasim.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. We love this film. First, I really just want to thank you both for making it. I never imagined myself being at all invested in Lucha Libre, but it was really such an absolute pleasure to get to know Mini Sirenita, Lady Candy, and Baby Star, and to see this really supportive community of women and the activism that they're all engaged in. And even the wrestling was just such a joy to watch. So, you know, this is your first feature film. How did you come to this particular subject, and how did you come to work together?
I think Lucha Libre was also not a thing that I was interested before we went to Mexico. So it's something that really happened when we were there. And we knew a lot about what was going on in Ciudad Juarez. And we knew that this place was known because of this high rate on femicide. And this is something which we felt horrible. And we wanted to understand how do people live in such a place. So we decided to go there, and we meet an amazing community of women who are fighting for a change. And we discovered that Lucha Libre is super big in Ciudad Juarez. And then we found out that the Juarez that we learned was totally different from what people used to think about the place. And we thought this was super powerful. And yeah, we wanted to show this incredible, strong woman. And I hope we did it.
And could you tell us a little bit more about the history of Ciudad Juarez? How did it become, you know, this kind of dangerous city that it is?
I mean, there's the whole cartel violence and the drug thing, which is I think a big topic on its own, but directly connected to it is are all the femicides. And from what we understand, it started in the 90s when like back then younger generation of like the sons of some cartel bosses went into prostitution and actually just started kidnapping women and forcing them into prostitution and killing them afterwards. And since then it exploded into something where it's dangerous to be a woman in Juarez. And then while there was the so-called war against drugs, which is pretty much the state connected with one cartel fighting against another cartel in Juarez, where you really had like war scenes on the street, like with shootings all the time and stuff. And then together with that, also the murder rate on women escalated. That was like in around 2010, and it slowed down a little bit over the last few years, but I don't know the exact numbers now. But it's still like I think 11 women in all of Mexico every day are murdered, and it's defined as a hate crime, just purely being murdered because being a woman. So it's still really gruesome.
Ciudad Juarez is a very difficult place to understand because it has very different sides, and it's very complex because of course you have all this border situation with the US and the cartels, but you also have these experiments they try to do with the maquila industry. I don't know if you hear about this. How do you say in English?
It's like factories, like montage
assembly factories.
Yeah, assembly factories.
And they begin with this idea, and then they thought, okay, let's see how does it work if we build up these factories here in the border with Mexican workers who are much cheaper than the US workers, and the products that are made in Mexico that are going to be sold in the US. And this generated that the city grew up like crazily.
Very fast.
And there was no
bigger. Yeah.
Exactly, and there was no infrastructure for the people, so there was no electricity, no water, no transportation. And the people, or one of the ideas that there are behind the story of Ciudad Juarez is that one of the first victims of femicide were women workers who were working for these factories, and it escalated in something horrible. And but of course, the base of all of this, let's say the base of this violence, it's mainly machismo and sexism. That's the reason why all these things are happening.
Yeah.
I mean, the workers that came to the city to work in these assembly factories often came from the countryside, but they didn't have the security of a social network anymore. They would have had on the countryside, but they were living in these like workers ghetto style suburbs, really. It's actually where one of our protagonists lives too, and it's like basic streets and housing where there's like, now they have water and electricity, but it's like really very simple. So and people are not protected anymore. Exactly. And then so the women became easy victims for kidnapping and all this brutality.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you know, kind of being surprised a little bit that these women were kind of engaged so fervently with this activism. This is really such a progressive and socially aware community. You know, it's wonderful to see this self-defense classes and the protests that they're engaged in. And even at one point, you know, hearing the announcer advocate for trans women as well. Is there, you know, is there some kind of a formal intersection between the lucha community and feminism and social justice?
I mean, there are let's say fighters or luchadoras who are very connected in the feminist movement. This is like very big. Lola Gonzalez is one of the biggest fighters in Ciudad Juárez. She's the one who in the film screams, "Vivas se las llevaron, vivas las queremos." She's from Juárez, but she moved to Mexico City. So there are, let's say, some luchadoras who are really into this feminist movement, who are really part and who are really fighting for a change. And that's the interesting thing, you know, that the first time we were in Ciudad Juárez, I met a woman, and the first time she told me is, "Hello, my name is Isabel, I'm a feminist." And I was so blown away, like, okay, this is super powerful. We're in the city of femicide, and the first woman I'm meeting is telling me she's a feminist. So yeah, as I was saying before, the Juárez is very complex, and there are a lot of different levels and different connections between the people, and it's a super interesting place.
Still, lucha libre is mainly done by guys. It's totally male dominated, and so all of the women are kind of I don't know, tough and stand up for what they think is right. Some of them through families, some of them just decided that they would want to go there and fight, and then a few of them are political. But yeah. I mean, it's a political act in itself somehow, and that's why it really was the premise for the movie, that you have a city that is known for femicide and violence against women, and then you have women that stand in the ring and present the opposite picture of what it means to be a woman in Juárez, and that was really the thing that got us interested. And then some of them were more like openly straightforward political, and for other it's more like on the personal level, or like just also a way to challenge like fears and what comes to you as a woman in Juárez, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the three women that you did kind of end up focusing on are so strong, and you know, they're kind of such complex characters that are dealing with their own kind of personal struggles. How did you find these particular wrestlers, Mini Serenita, Lady Candy, and Baby Star? How did you decide to focus on them in particular?
Well, we found them because we have some friends in Ciudad Juárez, and they kind of who are part of the Lucha Libre community, and they introduced us to all this community. And then it was, I mean, every story. Okay, there is this idea that with every woman who will be talking, a luchadora or a fighter, the story behind was amazing. Like every woman has really incredible stories on their backs in the city. So at the end, we finally worked with this woman because they were the woman which we connected the most, because we knew, okay, we're going to spend a lot of time, and this has to be something that feels good for all of us. There were women who would have the possibility to let us come into their private life, because this was also like very important. No, we are in a city where you cannot mainly be in the public space shooting, like doing a film. So it's very important that we are allowed to go to the private space. And of course, not all the people knew us from the beginning. There is a lot of how do you say mistrust? Do you say mistrust? Like you don't trust the people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was something that was actually super fluid, the way we end up working with the protagonist, and yeah,
we didn't do a really big casting. I mean, we met some, and then there was really quickly there was like a group of like there were like 2-3 more that we thought were interesting, but then one wasn't available all the time, and then it all came together because. I mean, like let's Mini Serenita, because she's really like this whole story with the maquilas, like the assembly factories, and she's really coming from that for us. It was, and she opened up for us right away. She didn't see us only as a promotion tool for her lucha career, but she was like, okay, you want to get real? Let's get real, right? This is my family. This is my mom, and then. The ones that did that with us, we fell in love with, and then we went with them, and yeah, it was with all 3 of them that were, because we didn't want to. We had to make clear to them that we didn't want to make a wrestling movie per se. We were not really interested in the actual qualities of their wrestling or how is it real, is it not, or any of that, right? But more of the statement they are making in taking part in wrestling as a female in that city, and so more into their private lives, and using the wrestling as a vehicle and to find interesting persons doing.
Yeah, we were shooting also with other people, not only with the 3 that finally made it to the film. And of course, while editing, then at some point the constellation of these 3 women was like the most powerful, and that's why we decided to keep this. And we sadly could not have all of them who we were shooting with, but yeah, I think it's a very nice combination of characters in the final film.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the really cute and charming things is this idea of Baby Star never removing her mask. Yeah. I know that's like a kind of important thing for like Lucha Libre. Was that a negotiation with her?
No, that was non-negotiable.
Okay.
No way.
Just no way.
Like if we want to film her, it has to be always with the mask. Like this is not there is no there is no way to.
There's actually a big tradition in with like male lucha libre superheroes from even back from the 50s, like El Santo. He would play in like B-movie action movies, all with his mask all the time, and he would come into interviews. And because it's a whole thing, if you lose your mask, right, then you have to get a new identity as a wrestler, because the mask is your identity. And then.
But of course, for us, was a little bit challenging because we didn't know, like, is it going to work? You know, we have a protagonist. When you have a superhero in a movie with a mask, you always see the real face, and you're waiting to see this face. And of course, we have this moment with this wonderful fighter, but she doesn't want to show her face. Okay, is it going to work? Are people going to really understand who is this? Because we know her without the mask, but people who are watching the film doesn't. So are we going to be able to transmit all the emotions and the story and the background? And I have to say, and this is something that surprises me a lot, that many people tell us their favorite fighter is Baby Star. Yeah. And this is magic. Like I just, how amazing is that? You never see her face, but there is something she transmits, the way she's with her baby, the way she laughs, the way, I don't know, she fights with her sister, that has a lot of power, and that people connect with that. And this is magical. Yeah.
Well,
we were very happy when we had the first test screening, and people were like, no problem that she's wearing a mask, not at all. So, and also, I mean, there was also, while shooting, there was a little bit of a process, I think, for all of us, because we would hang out with them and they wouldn't wear a mask. And then we wanted to shoot, and then they would have to put on the mask. And then it took a while, because the style we did it was like, we would hang out and we would just keep on shooting And it took a while for them to just keep the mask on around the house until they forgot that they were wearing the mask. And on top of that, forget that we were shooting all the time in between. And so it was a little bit of we went, it took some time to everybody forget what was happening and just make a movie. With the other one, it was more easy, you know, just we would hang out and we would film in between. And then it felt more natural from the very beginning. But with them, it went well too in the end.
I loved especially the scene at the picnic table where both her and her child's father are wearing the masks. They're having this emotional moment, and then you just...
Yes.
I want to ask about this ominous scene at the border where there's a man in the car, you know, watching them, and presumably also you being there filming the scene. So what is it like kind of filming under these circumstances that have kind of a looming sense of fear?
Okay, so fear is everywhere in Ciudad Juárez, and fear, and you feel it. Like, it's not only, okay, you are in the city. The first time we arrived to Juárez, it really felt like a ghost city. Like, you could see the buildings, the restaurants, the discos, they were there, but people left and everything was staying there. So it really felt very, very strange for us. And then, of course, all the news you read every day, and all these attacks and all this horrible violence. So this generates fear. And the thing, or the strange things with fear, is that fear is very illogical, or it's super personal. It's super. There were situations where I will feel afraid and Patrick will be totally safe, and other way around, where he will feel totally unsafe and I will say, hey, I trust the people here totally. So fear is really something. It's really hard to deal with fear, because sometimes you don't know, is this paranoia or is it real a dangerous situation where I am in? And this was like, for us, the most difficult thing to deal with. Try to understand, try to really read the situation and feel, okay, what should we do? Where should we go? How do we react in this situation? But at the end, you know, like, the most important thing that we learned while there was that the only way you have to feel secure is to be part of a community. So it can be the Lucha Libre, or it can be your family, or it can be your friends, but being in a group is something that is always gonna protect you. So once we learned that, then we also knew how to move and how to deal with this. But I mean, of course, talking about this shooting day on the border, like, let's say, we went there because we knew the place is an important place. There is this graffiti and there is like people, it's like an important place, let's say. And then suddenly we realized, okay, there are people who don't want us to be here. And this was clear. In the first moment, the mom of Baby Star and Little Star, she said, hey, we have to leave. Yeah. We don't like these people. And of course, we leave. And the thing is, of course, like, what would have happened? Nobody knows what would have happened if we would have stayed there. I think the situation was super, let's say, basic. Like, they were controlling, they didn't want people to be there and stop, and they wanted to leave, and that's what happened. But of course, you think about, when we're leaving the place, where should we go? We cannot go home if we know people are following us. So we go to an arena and we stay in the arena, and then we wait some hours till we have the feeling we can leave now. And of course, all these situations, the horrible thing about that is that's the daily life of these people, you know, and that's their realities. But they, as I was saying, they found a way to deal with that, which is being part of community.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know,
becomes kind of a like a natural thing that is around and happening all the time. Like, when you live in a city that is windy, you dress a certain way, or you know, if it's raining all the time, like in England, you take your umbrella. And if you go out in Juarez, then there's this other natural thing that is happening, and you deal with it, you know, and in being cautious and don't go anywhere. That day especially, Baby Star's mother wasn't super comfy going there, and then we said, okay, come on, let's do it. And then it happened right away, and she was like, okay, kids, that's it. And yeah, what we just did what they said we should do.
Mm.
I want to ask just the last question. Are you still in touch with these women, and kind of, you know, what has COVID been like for this community?
Well, COVID affected the whole world in a very, not the whole, but mostly very bad situation. It was hard, like last year was hard for all of them. But now it's getting better. The fights are, how do you say? There are getting more fights now. People are allowed to fight, because there was for a long time, it was not allowed for them to fight. Lady Candy was even in Mexico last weekend fighting, which is super crazy and super
Mexico City.
Mexico City, yeah, Mexico City. I mean, so yeah, things are changing now, and I think they are having like very positive visions of what can happen now. I think it's a good moment now for them.
Yeah, they made it through the COVID and not having the events, which especially for Lady Candy really pays her rent more, so it was hard for them.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great to hear that, you know, they're coming out of the other end. They're such strong women.
They're fighters. They will never
Obviously.
stop. They will
Yes.
never stop. Yeah.
Thank you guys both so much for being here for this wonderful film and for allowing us to present it as a part of AFI Docs. We're really tremendously honored.
Thank you for having
so
us.
Yeah,
we feel honored for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone in the audience for being here today. Please visit our website at docs.afi.com for more opportunities to interact with these films, audiences, and filmmakers, and of course, to see more films. Luchadoras is available to screen throughout the remainder of the festival, and we would love to hear from you on social media at #AFIDocs. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.